Hi, everybody. This is the podcast Women Who Tech, and we are talking with the next badass women professional this time. I'm Lisa, your permanent host, and today we're gonna kick off the conversation about freelance design and how to fill in the gaps, have the proper work-life balance, and so on with Camille Dufresne, freelance senior product designer and user researcher. Hi, Camille.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. Today is May, and finally Berlin is blooming, and seems like we also have a very nice mood on Friday evening, right? How are you doing?
Great. I love Berlin in spring. It's just the best season of the year. So, doing great. Thank you.
Absolutely, I also love Berlin in May. And there are also many holidays in May. I hope that those are also applicable for freelancers.
Well, not really. I mean, we don't have a concept of bank holidays, but I mean, you do get some time off. It's nice as well.
Awesome. I partially already let the cat out of the bag. I said that you're a freelance senior product designer and user researcher. And how would your ordinary day look like?
Well, that's a very good question. And the fact when you're a freelancer is that you don't really have a routine in that like days can look very differently. For now, I'm juggling between two different projects. So I have one contract that is like 3 days a week, and then I have another contract that is more flexible for startups. So that's how my week is organized. Obviously, as a freelancer, when you have projects, that's great news, which is what's happening for me at the moment. But you also need to keep a watch what's coming next. So it's always important to stay in touch with people, to go to conference, with the ecosystem, the news, what's coming, what's happening. So because you have to stay on track of things. So that's an important part of your job as a freelancer.
Mm.
What I don't do enough at the moment is communicating about your work, like writing posts on LinkedIn, those kind of things. That's how people get to see you and hear about you, and that's how you get your next contracts eventually. But because I'm quite full at the moment, I tend to neglect this side of things.
Yeah, I guess for now. So you mentioned that it's very important for the freelancer to stay visible. And one way to do that is being present on LinkedIn. And what else could one do to stay more up to date with tech, showcasing the skills and also visible for the potential client?
Well, I think there are a bit two different types of personality in general. So either you're more of a person like that likes to do the things from distance, if you're a bit more of an introvert person. So I think, yeah, LinkedIn or just posting is a great way. If you're more of an extrovert person, which I think I am, social and extrovert, I'm not so good at posting. I mean, I do it from time to time, but I think how I get my contract is actually more. I don't think I ever go to a meeting and be like, I want to get contracts, because I think that's not how it works. If you talk to people with this mindset, I think that's not a good mindset. Over time, you build a network of people. I think I just don't really see them as a network. It's like people I like, and from time to time, I don't know, you'll go grab a coffee. Someone tells you about an event, then you show up. You go to conferences, design related activities, maybe every 2 months. Also, like it's not all the time, but I tend to go to a place, talk to people, talk to friends, do things like this every 2 months, and yeah, that's how you stay visible. And if they need someone, they will just reach out. Another thing I use for my to get contracts is I'm on a freelancer platform that is called Malt, and somehow it works quite well. I get only a few offers, but usually they're quite qualified. Most of the time, when I get an offer, I get the contract.
Awesome. This sounds like a bit of effort, but so much more impact and result that you're getting. Like you've been saying with the whole personal branding, you either post a lot, and that's also one way to tackle that, or you should socialize a lot. And by the conversation, you're already showcasing yourself, your competencies, your experience. And when you said that those people might just have might remember you, might have your image in mind. Do you mean both designers, fellows, product people, not only like hiring managers, right?
Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, freelancing position rarely go through hiring managers. It's more people like head of design or CPO, depending on, how big the company is, or actually a funder if it's a small startup. So I never talk to hiring managers. I mean, hardly ever. And what you said about personal branding, I find it quite interesting because people tend to see networking or personal branding as really something that is strategy driven,
Mm.
where I feel it helps me like to be authentic. I think it's more, I don't know, I feel I've been strategic. My strategy is probably just to be authentic and stand for my value and who I am and just present the way I am. Also approaching people being like, okay, I want to have a project with you very soon. I guess some people who are super business driven might do that. This is really not my take. When I go to events that are relevant, as in my field, I will always talk to people that I find interesting and friendly, with whom I can have interesting conversation about what's going on in the product world, which is crazy at the moment, but in general. And then you stay in touch. I do it more in a natural way. I talk to people that I appreciate instead of trying to reach out to specific person to reach a, like, to fulfill a certain, like, goal or something. So far,
Absolutely.
I've always managed. I think, yeah, if it might help perceiving networking as personal branding, not as something very businessy and very strategic. Try to be honest and authentic about who you are. And I guess this is probably as powerful and it's
Of
more fun
course.
to do, at least.
For sure, it's very powerful. It's very like a human approach. It's human to human. It's just one person talking to other person, a fellow designer to the other fellow designers, and so on. It all comes from the space of empathy and sharing. I think it's very refreshing for many people who would expect the other, either freelancer or the person who is looking for the job, just selling themselves, and that's it.
Why are you selling at the end when you're a freelancer, right? You're
Mhm.
selling yourself in a way, like who you are. So, I mean, either you're trying to sell actively or you just show who you are. And I guess showing interest, like, yeah, it's funny what you said. I never saw it like this, but empathy at the end of the day is one of the strongest skills you need as a product designer. So it makes sense if you show empathy at the same time you showcasing your skill.
For sure, empathy and the genuine interest towards the person or company. So tell us, please, and overall, like, to everybody who were like me on its side of full-time job, and especially here in Germany, we have different regulations when it comes to the freelancers and to the people with the permanent full-time jobs. What the pros and cons of the freelance job that you're having, what you like about freelancing, and what the challenges you face when you think it might be different if the full-time job.
Well, I like the diversity of things. That's one main thing, I guess, is just you get to see so many different companies, industries, like processes. I always find it interesting to see how differently companies can work. And I always find it refreshing and inspiring. Also, I feel every project, like every company I see, you always take away something from them in your own organizations of your own work. So that is a thing I really like. Another thing that I like is the kind of task you get. I guess it can be in pros and cons depending on your personality. When you come in as a freelancer, there is a clear goal. There is some, like, it's not, we assume you always have like a certain amount of work that someone needs to deliver as you come in. There is a certain problem that needs to be solved. At the end of the day, or at the end of your contract, you will have to deliver that solution. So it's very down to earth. There's clear expectations. You spend less time, in meetings and coordinating. You do need to quickly, like, get in touch and have a good human relationship with the people who are like key actors for you to work. I feel you have much more focus time where you actually do the work and less like presence kind of thing that you have to do when you're um like in a permanent contract. That being said, it also means that if for whatever reason you're not doing well, you have too many things, it's something you struggle with, it also gets visible very quickly. If you don't deliver as a freelancer, it is very visible. You're on your own, there is no one you can hide yourself behind. Something that I really like is I think I've always struggled when I was working for companies is I can work a lot and give a lot. If you do a lot of like extra hours for a project for whatever reason because you have a tight deadlines, okay, you might have one day off, where you're not going to show up to work, but it will never really balance up with the hard work you've put. If I'm a freelancer and for whatever reason I took on too many projects and I end up working 12 hours every day for a month or so, every hours that I worked for, I will charge them, which also means that then I'll have proper rest time after that. I get it's something that I like, that I don't have this regular 8 hours daily work, 5 days a week, but there might be phases where I'm working a lot, and there might be days or weeks where I have less work. I don't even need to pretend and read my emails. I can check in a few things, a few hours, but then I can really go do something else, read, learn about the industry, do pottery, whatever. So I guess that's something I really like about being a freelancer.
But am I getting right that you feel more control over your time, meaning that it happens that it's unbalanced, like you said, 12 hours of work instead of 8, but there's gonna be a time when it's less than 8, so you have more time for yourself, and it comes in waves.
Yeah, totally. It does come in waves. I like it. I think some people strongly dislike it. It's a matter of personality. You are in control in certain extent, as in you always choose to take on the project or decline it. I would say sometimes you also have this loyalty towards clients. If you've been working with them for a long time and you like them and they really need you to do quickly something and you're already full, you will take it, because of the long lasting relationship you've had with them. And that's where there is a different type of control over your time.
Okay, gotcha. I'd like to learn more about you managing your time and result. When you get in the job, would there be in the job description right away? So, for example, we'd like to welcome one more product designer or user researcher on board for the next 6 months to achieve this and that. We're looking for that kind of candidate. Is that something as a standard job description to expect and to understand what they want to get in 6 months?
It really depends. I feel there are also lots of jobs that I get where there is no proper job description. It's more like someone reach out to you through LinkedIn. They usually like, hey, someone gave me your contact. I'm looking for a product designer, user research. I want to do this and that, maybe 2, 3 sentences that you get on a call. And I don't know, you'll talk like half an hour. It depends. Freelancing is really about having no bullshit attitude. In your first call, they would just first of all try to understand, okay, does it match personally, like humanly? Are we both interested in what the other person wants us to do? And then you already start throwing ideas. They will pitch you their problems and you already throw ideas. And this that happens the first hour you talk to the person. There's nothing with like 2 weeks onboarding, showing you all.
Yeah.
Some people, do you like it? Do you not like it's not for everyone.
Yes. Yeah, it requires quite a flexibility of mind and curiosity and empathy again. So to wear the hat of your customer right away on the first call, understand what they need, how you manage, and so on. But since we're on this topic of onboarding or screening call, what are your top 3 red flags that you might spot on that kind of call? Something that make you understand there is no match.
Oh, that's a very good question. It might not happen during the quote call, but right after, usually you send a quote or kind of a draft. And if people start to negotiate at the beginning already, how expensive you are, how many days, all those things, you just run away from it. Oh, I mean, I do. No, because it's a nightmare.
Absolutely.
No, no, literally. In like, these people have the power to just actually not pay you at the end or pay you less by being like, oh, but can you do that really quickly and then I'll send you the money. Like, it's really not the relationship you want to be in. And especially because you are, as a freelancer, quite vulnerable to people potentially not paying you. Never happened to me so far. I hope it stay like that. But I know stories. It takes you to sue them. It's just so expensive. It takes years. Even if you have an insurance as a freelancer, it's just not gonna happen. So you don't want to be in those kind of relationships. Another thing that can happen is if it turns out that they need skills that are not necessarily yours. Having the feeling I kind of could do this project, but knowing deep down that you're not the best qualified person to do that. And I feel especially that's a mistake that people could do when they start freelancing because you just want projects. And that's a very bad idea. Over time, you grow support systems. I know people, if I'm stuck, they can unstuck me. It's still you on your own, right? It's a quite independent kind of working and getting yourself in project in field and topic that you don't really master is a bad idea because you're going to struggle and you're going to struggle alone. So I'd much rather like either give out the project completely to someone else, like a freelancer that I know and send them in trusting hands, or split the project and say, I can do this, but the other half or whatever percentage I cannot do it. Ideally, you know someone with whom you can partner up, but be honest about what you can deliver. And trying to deliver things you don't know about is a bad idea. I think overselling as a freelancer is a bad idea.
Mm. That's such a valuable insight because I heard many things just the opposite. It's more like, yeah, if you even can deliver 80 or 90% jump into that. Sometimes it's true, but overall it's better, yeah, to kind of realistically evaluate your effort, your competencies, rather than just not make it into the end.
It's also that's a very questionable assumption. How well are you able to estimate your own skills? Some people just are very polite or humble and they would tend to always underestimate themselves slightly. And in that case, if they consider they can do 90 or 80% of the jobs, that's more than enough. Some people are a bit self-confident, maybe too self-confident, and if they think they can deliver 80%, that's really not enough. This sentence is already a bit achy in its core. If they want me to code something or do SEO or whatever, fuck.
Mhm.
Because for some people, especially if you're working for startups, it's all a black box. If you work for a big company, you have someone from the field, they know what to expect. But with some people, when you're a designer, they don't really know who you are. They're like, so can you code? Can you do marketing? Can you do la la la? Like, no. There are things I can do, there are things I cannot do. And like, I don't think it's a good idea for me to start trying to do a marketing strategy. It's a personal take. So, what might apply to me or to anyone with similar personality might be the wrong answer for someone else with a very different personality. But I would strongly advise not to oversell yourself. You're gonna
Mhm.
regret it and you're gonna pay for it.
That's us. Yeah, yeah. No, good.
Dramatic, but then you're on your own, you have no fucking clue about what you're doing, and you still have to deliver. Like it comes back to the point where I say at the beginning, if you're freelancing and you're not delivering, it is visible.
Absolutely.
There is a deliverable that needs to happen. And if it's shaky or if it's not there or it's like partially there, people will see it.
Yeah, and nobody's gonna like that. And that's gonna impact also the contract and your reputation and so on. Since we're on this work scope evaluation and answer the question of do I match with the job. After the screening call happened, and if you feel that yeah, it's just a good fit, what is your approach to evaluate the whole job, and to what degree is that needed in the freelance world? Meaning that would you give them the price for your hour and then perhaps the total for the next 6 months, or do you have the space to say, hey, in order to deliver what you like to have, it's gonna take more than 6 months. I would advise you, let's say 8, and therefore the total price is gonna be like that. Do you have the freedom to say so? Would you do so?
I would do so. That's I come back to your point. If you know this is unrealistic, say it. Are certain things you like? I preferably work with a daily rate. So we agree on the rate and we agree that I'll spend depends on the size of the project. If you, for example, right now I have a longer project where it's 6 months and I know that 3 days a week I have to show up virtually, but there are 3 days. These are clear days in my week where I have to be available 8 hours in a row for this company and I have a daily rate. And then it is because it's a longer period, it's also bridging different things, transition of the company. I'm kind of have a position similar to an employee. So there are certain things I need to deliver, but it's also a lot about bridging gaps or whatever is missing at the moment. So if they really want me to work on a big project, that might include almost 3 months full time or longer part time. I prefer to agree on a daily rate and some flexibility about the dates because we all know that life happens, right? And you can have a great plan and then things happen, things change because we have to react. Like when we do product and you iterate and you test, sometimes it doesn't come out the way you would like it to be, and that's okay. In that sense, you need flexibility. So I try to advocate for a daily rate and then kind of flexible range of time. And if they disagree, I that's not something I like to do. So then I would rather not take the project or yeah, try to negotiate, see if we can do a smaller part of the project, see how it goes and see if we can renew it. I rarely take a project 6 months straight. It's also not common. Usually, if you've never worked together before, you agree on a smaller step and a smaller project. 2 months is something. You see how it goes, and then you go one step deeper. And if it's a really smaller project, I need to run like 10 user interviews, write a script and a report. We can agree on a general budget because I've done it many times. You can estimate the time, like how many things can go wrong. Then I'm fine with just an overall budget. But I think the longer the projects get, the better it is to have just to agree on a daily rate and then of an overall, timeline, and then you react to whatever happens.
Okay, I see. Yeah, this very thoughtful approach, and thinking about the timeline, whether it's the first customer that you have interaction with, or is a longer relationship. So you've been saying that you tend to evaluate your work, your services, for the day with the daily rate, and do you invoice your customer on monthly basis? Because I've been curious about this balance between, like I said, part-time work days that are constant for you. Like for example, right now is 3, and the other 2 is yours. So can belong to other project, can belong just for your personal time. Do you calculate then the days you worked within this month, and then it just becomes the monthly invoice?
That's a very good question. Well, if you're in a regular monthly kind of agreed stuff, then you actually invoice at the end of every month. Like you've worked many days and then they'll just send you the money. If you're in smaller project or big project where you agreed on an overall budget, there are different ways to split it. You can either do 50% at the beginning and 50% at the end. You can split it differently. You that 30, 30, 40. I never do all the money at the end. But like, especially if I've never worked with someone, you're working for you 3 months and not knowing if you're going to give me the money. So it's also trust based. If I had some of your money, but not all of it, and you want me to finish the services, so we have a balanced power dynamic.
I would even go a bit deeper with this one. So you're saying that a very standard approach is to invoice, to charge on monthly basis. Depends also on the project duration.
When you agree on a general budget, then they will just either give you 50 at the beginning and then 50 at the end. Or if it's a bigger project and more money, obviously they don't want to give you 50 at the very beginning because they don't even know what you're going to deliver. So they'll give you either 40 or 30, then you will get kind of the other 30 in the middle, and then the very end, the rest. So just different way to split the money depending on how much you know each other, how much you trust each other, and how high is the amount.
That's very smart. Is there a way that you prefer?
No, necessarily. I guess the monthly thingy is the easiest one because most of the thing you have to pay are on a monthly basis. So I guess that's the most aligned with your general needs, but it means also more invoices. So it has pros and cons. If you're a freelancer, you need to have savings. I would strongly also not advise someone not to start without savings. If you do have savings, you're a bit resilient to whenever people like pay you.
So you're not just like totally depend on your customer to pay the check. You just have your savings. You feel more independent, feel more resilient. Like how are you feeling about the whole imbalanced and unstable occupation with the clients? If you even can recommend like how much money has to have one designer who wants to become a freelancer, and any tips and any stories in that regards.
Well, I mean, if you want to be very pragmatic about it, really talk about numbers, I always recommend to have at least 3 months of savings that you're able to cover up to 3 months of zero money coming in. Ideally, it's 3 to 6. It's not only about not having projects or having projects where they don't end up not paying you. When you're freelancing, sometimes you pay things in advance, my health insurance or my taxes or whatever. But at the end, it's always based on estimations because you never know how much you're going to make at the end of the day. And there are moments where you might work less and then you can get a few thousand euro back. But there are also moments where you have worked more. And for what, if you're in the worst case scenario, because you always your taxes at half a year until a year and a half later than actually what happened, like the official year. Let's say you had 2023, you had a great year. So you didn't pay enough in advance. Then for some reason 2024 you have a shitty year. So you don't want to do your taxes because you have to pay money back. Eventually you'll still have to do it. And then the moment you do it, you have to pay a couple thousand euro back because you have to pay back to the taxes and to the health insurance. So there are really moments where all of, within 2-3 weeks, because they give you relatively little notice, you might have to just on press give like 5,000 euro out. If you combine taxes and health insurance, so that's why you need to always have some cash on the side. There are streams coming both ways, but you also really have moments where you just like press 5,000 euro out, just
Yeah,
like that.
just like that. You just started to answer my main question. That's one thing that freelance work scares me off. So you, on one hand, you have your tax declaration that should happen like every year. With this one, many people are familiar with, but with the freelancer, it's a bit different. How different that is. What things to look out when I'm a freelance designer in the opposite to the just the regular permanent employee. Yeah, in terms of tax declarations and insurance.
First advice I'll give you, just get a tax advisor. I hate doing taxes personally. I live in a country I didn't grow up, which means I'm not necessarily super familiar with the system. The moment I started working as a freelancer, it was clear I would get a tax advisor. Externalizing all these worries of doing it wrong. I'm sure she does a better job than me on like optimizing the things. She knows all the tricks. I don't, which means I cannot really give you lots of insights about the tax situation because I don't touch that very much. You have an insurance, you need a health insurance, at least in Germany. You can do a public or a private one. In any cases, it is much more expensive than what you pay when you're employed. Because when you're employed, you'll pay it one half and the employer would pay the other half. When you're freelancing, you're your own boss, which means you pay 100% of the stuff. And that's also something I would advise if you're considering freelancing. Try to get in touch with freelancers to be realistic about your budget because so many things are much more expensive when you're a freelancer than when you're an employee, which means if you calculate your freelance basis based on what you have in mind when you're working for a company, you're gonna underestimate so many things and start with the daily rate that is probably too low. And that's probably why people, every time they see like freelancing rate, how come they're getting so much money? I mean, the reason behind is there are so many things you're covered for, we're not. And that needs to be mirrored to some extent into your daily rate.
That's what I've been thinking of, that there are things freelancer person should think ahead. And so is the tax declaration, just to get a good tax advisor. That's like the best way. Maybe we can also list down, say them out loud. So for example, the health insurance, the pension investment, are those mandatory for freelancers as well?
Health insurance, yes. Pension plan, no. which means you can, avoid the topic. But I think that's a bad idea. And that's typically a thing you will cross if you underestimate your budget. You know, and I don't think that's a smart move to end up starting your retirement without a pension plan. What are the other expenses you have? The thing that I have, and I would also recommend everyone to get if you're a freelancer, is some kind of sickness support, because you don't get leaves. That also depends on the agreement you have. For example, like I start getting some money after I think 1.5 months or something of sick leaves, which means like most of the time when I'm sick, I don't get anything. I have a special insurance if I'm very sick for whatever reason, like I get a cancer or a super dramatic thing, which is obviously not a thing you want to think about, but like, you cannot work in those conditions. So I have an extra insurance. I don't know how it's called exactly. In case of like severe sickness, they'll drop I don't know how much cash at once for me to be able to recover and do my treatment or whatever I need to do in good conditions.
By the way, it's a good question. Like, what would happen if you get a fever, you wake up and you actually cannot do your work? Would you say, yeah, your client, the company, I'm taking a sick leave?
I mean, you don't tell them you're taking a sick leave, because if you're sick, they don't pay you. So you have two options. Either you work while you're sick, or you decide not to work because you're not in a shape, and then you're not paid. That's also a thing. I think you have less of the luxury of being sick when you're a freelancer. Let's be honest about it. If you're somehow in a position to work, you work, and then you rest when you have no contracts. Obviously, if you're very, very sick, or if you need to go to the hospital or whatever, you take your break when you're a freelancer. It's like, first of all, a money problem. You want to be paid, but usually you have enough money aside to cover it up if it's 2-3 days. But most of the time you come in, there's quite some time pressure for you to deliver. So I will definitely inform the person who hired me and with whom you have a trust-based relationship. If I'm working with close colleagues or whatever, now it's quite easy. Most of the time you work on Slack, you just put a notification that you're sick on Slack, end of the story.
Now we are really behind the curtains of freelance work. So there are certain benefits like diversity and flexibility, but also certain commitments and expenses and taxes as a freelancer. I remember my partner was considering the freelance work, and before leaving the full-time job, he made the whole calculation document with all the items inside, the insurances, the taxes, some insurances cover edge cases, something amount of money you have to leave on your account when facing New Year. It should be there just to cover any decision that the Finanzamt might make. So I just started to admire the approach calculation. If you feel not comfortable enough to say I'm ready for the freelance work, and it's all the personal financial management. When we choose certain activity or having a full-time job or part-time job or the freelancing, not always we realize the whole experience we are choosing, all pros and cons of that. So that's why it's very important to hear the real stuff from someone like you who's doing that for years now as a freelancer. I really enjoy our conversation, and also such a transparent and honest points on nuances of freelance work and self-discipline and management. I think now everybody who was considering or just started the freelancing would look into the insurance deeper, into financial management and so on. By the way, there are many bloggers, courses, information out there on a financial management. It's not about you earning more and more money. It's actually being mindful of the money you get to balance your costs, your spends, and investment. The career path shouldn't be just written down and planned ahead, and shouldn't be just vertical. It can be involve different areas and different type of activities that you switch on and off, and that's totally fine. I really love that. Thank you so much for the comment with the personality matching. So that's a good space to ask all those questions and have an honest answer within ourselves. And you awesome people, feel free to comment on anything. Let us know know what you think about freelance. Have you got any experience with that? Do you do freelance design or any freelance job right now? Don't forget that the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Reels on Instagram. So choose your platform. We're gonna hear each other once again. Thank you, Camille.